you know, coronavirus, and we have to do this.
Also, Ashi can't access her system.
I have to give the permission, I think.
No, she can't just go on the system, the whole system. She can't log in. Hi, Mohammed. He doesn't have his microphone. Hello? Mohammed, make your microphone to be available so that we can hear you.
I'm back again. Mohammad's microphone is closed.
I told him, I'm trying to tell him on the phone that he must make his microphone on.
Okay. Okay, now I'm starting. Is that okay?
Yes, that's okay, sir.
If you have any question, you may ask.
Okay.
Do you have any question now?
No, I don't have questions right now.
No question. Okay. Then if the slides slowly, then I have to go slowly. I changed the slide 1. Is it changing? When it is changed, tell me, then I will arrange it regarding to the changing time.
Okay.
Is it okay?
Yes, right now it's still on number 1.
Okay, I change it to 2, chapter page 2, elements of interdependence. Is it coming?
No,
When
it's
it
still on
comes,
1.
I'm waiting.
Okay, I'll tell you when it comes.
Yes, unfortunately, it is slowly. I don't know why it's so, because of this. Didn't change?
No,
Strange.
still on 1.
Still not changing?
No. I'm thinking that maybe I should open my slide on the side so that I would be able to go at the same time.
To chapters, to slides.
Yes, because I
It's,
downloaded the
it's.
slides.
I think this is the best way to download and see what I am doing, isn't it? Because as you
Yes,
see,
that's the
it takes time to
yeah.
changing. You can download the slides. I think this is the best way.
Yes,
But
I
it's not
downloaded
changing.
it. Let me
Is it?
just open it.
But it didn't change now. Is it in the first page still?
No, it's still on the first page.
What it's right?
It didn't change now.
Elements of interdependence didn't come.
It's still on chapter 1, the international economy and globalization.
Interesting. I don't know why. But it was changing, isn't it, first?
Yes, at first it was changing.
I don't know. This is the problem. I think everybody is talking because in every lecture this is happening, and every course I think this is problem because it's slowly and sometimes it's freezing, and we can follow on. But if you open your own PowerPoints, then you can follow it easily. I think, isn't it?
Yes, I've opened my own right now. I'm on number 2, elements of interdependence.
Okay, then we can go together.
Okay.
Um, um, You should inform the other student if you have communication now.
Okay.
Somebody Ali Nelson is here. Okay. Shall I have to wait a little bit more?
Hmm? Yes, we can wait. It's fine.
Is anybody who's coming?
Hi, guys. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, yes. Thank you for joining our course. I hope you will enjoy. Nelson and Momat is here also, I think, and nobody else.
Yeah, yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Who? Nielsen.
Yeah, I'm here. Nelson is here. Nelson is here.
Okay, and then Momat. I saw Momat also.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to start presentation, but presentations are very slowly. Therefore, you have to download the presentations, the chapter one, and then you will follow with my program. You follow me from your own PowerPoint because this online program is not very fast and it goes slowly. Therefore, you have to open your own PowerPoints that I have uploaded. Okay, you understanding?
Yeah.
Is it
Yes, sir.
okay? Then upload it, and then I will go further. Okay, I'm going to start this international economics that we have done already some, and the Carbox books is already our courses, and of course Dominic Salvatore. Is there anything else that you're asking me because I hear some voices? Okay. Elements of interdependence. As you know, we are questioning why we are trading each other because you know the international economics mostly dependent to the you are listening. We are,
Yeah.
of course, we are questioning continuously why we are uh, trading each other, why we are having interrelations and of course international relations because we don't have the all resources in our countries and we have to communicate with other nations, with other governments for increasing and enlarging the, of course, resources which we don't have. I think there is the program with, I think the telephone is ringing or something else. You have to switch it off or you can take it to silent. Therefore, we are trading with countries for goods, services, raw materials, and energy because we don't have all resources in our country. As I told you, these are the one of the important part of this international economical relations. And of course, we have also some financial inabilities. The FDI investment, foreign direct investment, foreign portfolio investments, you know, FDI investment is directly related with the countries who are bringing their capital and they are bringing their know-how and people for investing in your country. And foreign portfolio investment is somehow is more profitable because they are bringing the capital and they are also supporting you with some know-how, but you are cooperating with them and you will then enlarge this knowledge to your country either. Therefore, the capital problems is also forcing us to communicate with the other countries and also multinational corporations, the franchising companies is also require this globalization and global production because countries where they are having, let's say, sufficient consumers in their country and they are having more and more produced goods and services, they have to enlarge their production operation process regarding to these expanding market structures. And of course, multinational companies, while the companies becoming enlarged and increase, become large size, they have to enlarge their multinational corporations towards the other nations. As currently we are exercising, we have problems. And if one country's problem is not close to the country, then we are understanding globalization and neoliberalism, neoliberalism is of course forcing countries to become together for enlarging these international relations And of course, even if you don't want to deal with these problems, it is affected. Look to the North Korea, for example. It is affected when something happens in the outside of the country, then they are also related. They will also get affected. Therefore, we have to create some trade relations, some financial activities, and some multinational relations, and some other governmental relations for our preferences, because isolation is not the solution. As you see, the North Korea, which is of course closed economy, is not very well. They have some restricted relations with Japan, with China, and you don't close your whole economy to the other nations. You have some resources which is not in your country, and you have to use them, as we are doing in Cyprus either. The globalization is of course dependent to the technological improvement and of course progress, which is accelerating and increasing the productivity, communication, information technologies, transportations. These are the striving force for the globalization, of course, the international relations. Liberalization, as I mentioned to you, the trade and investment is also similarly affecting our relations. Since we are having some trade relations with other nations, we are understanding the restrictions, which is concentrated to the tariff, non-tariff barriers. The non-tariff barriers mostly concentrated to these, of course, sanitary, phytosanitary measures, and some other voluntary export restraints, quotas, and some
Sorry,
other,
sir.
which is, yes, please.
Are we on number
Yes.
4? Are we on slide number 4?
Number three. I am talking too much, unfortunately. I am not only concentrating to the slides. I talk and I'm talking about my knowledge. Of course,
Okay.
the slide is only integrated to the sub points and subtopics. Sometimes I am going too quickly, and sometimes I am enlarging it. Therefore, the PowerPoint is not always helping hand. You just only seeing the subtopics. And liberalization, as
Okay.
I mentioned to you, is the financial transactions, which is concentrated to the FDI, foreign direct investments and foreign portfolio investments, and international financial markets is also necessary for monetary transactions and for monetary uh, interactions between the countries, because we are all dealing with the nations, with the international activities we are having, and we have to use
Just
some capital and of course currencies regarding to the international relations. What is it, please? You have any question? Because I think Nelson telephone is continuously ringing or something happens. I don't know. Is it so? Okay, the page 4 is of course concentrated to the globalization, which is started. I think somebody should slowly close or reduce the voice of the microphone, because I hearing everything. The globalization, of course, is the first wave. It started in 1870s, in 1914, the falling uh, barriers and improving transportation, especially in the First World War, concentrated and, of course, enlarged this collaboration, which was necessary. And, of course, the second wave comes from the Second World War. After the Second World War, where the reconstruction of the European countries required some world finance and, of course, the capital, especially the World Bank and IMF uh, concentrated to these contributions. And of course, the American aid, so-called Marshall Plan, was realized for reconstructing and rebuild the collapse of the EU countries. The agreements, of course, also after the EU, which was the European Economic Communities, accelerated this integration and, of course, globalization of trade relations, where the EU is or was the most uh, preferable model in this direction, because they remove all the barriers between the member countries, and they become more collaborating for enlarging and increasing their relations for prosperity and development. As you see, this is, of course, the rich and, of course, developed countries collaboration, but poor nations behind left behind, and they needed some more contribution to
Oh,
this
it's my name.
direction. And after the 80s, the growth of emerging economies,
Hello?
especially China and other countries in the South
Hello?
Asia. You have any question?
Okay, can you hear me?
You are asking me something, Momat?
Yeah, asking whether you can hear me now.
Yes, yes. Tell me,
Okay, no
what
problem.
is it?
No, my microphone was off, so I was asking whether you can hear me now.
Oh, so I'm hearing, okay. And of
Okay.
course, after the 80s, especially the Reagan and Thatcher time or period, this globalization is and neoliberalism is, of course, accelerated and increased because they observed the global problems and they started to communicate with the South Asian countries to enlarge and increase this global effect towards to the developing nations, the so-called the emerging economies, the bridge countries, the Brazil, Russia, India, China, and these countries, Mexico, Indonesia, South Korea, South Africa, Turkey. These are the most important part of this collaboration, which is still in this direction very effective, and they are trying to enlarge and increase this globalization and, of course, for development in the world level. But as you see, we have too many problems. Currently, the COVID, so-called the coronavirus, is heavily affecting. Since you become global, you are also not only getting the positive, but also the negative of the world nations, as we already currently exercising this coronavirus started from the China, from Wuhan, and expanded to the whole nations. As you see, the global market is not only mean the globalization of the trade, but globalization of the peoples and, of course, welfare and, of course, everything. The pandemic and everything is, of course, become globalized. And this is, of course, a problem. And, of course, we are currently in a very deep crisis as we had in 2008 and as we had in 1930, so-called in 1929, the fiscal and, of course, the financial crisis started. And in the 2008 similarly, but now is totally different because we are exercising different problems because the problem now is in the whole nations, in the whole countries, and this is, of course, probably a big issue, and we will see what will be at the end of this period happens to the global economical prosperity and development, because the demand is reduced and is in recession, and supply chain is stopped, or so-called is very, very slowly started to move, and financial activities reduced. These are the problems currently we are exercising. As you see, the globalization is not only the prosperity and welfare, but it is also the mean for reduction in the welfare, sometimes cause of the crisis, which is affecting and changing people's direction to the global nations and global world, as you observing. And when we look this economical interdependence, you see the Netherlands, Norway, South Korea, Canada, Germany, France. These are all exporting and importing each other. And as much as you are observing, the amount of the export and import usually trying to become equally realized for reducing the deficit, because, as you know, the net export is in Keynesian economical model, especially the components. One of the important components for the Keynesian economy is the net export. When you have some deficit on trade balance, then you have also a problem, and of course, uh, current account deficit in this direction. Therefore, export and import should be somehow balanced. If not, then you are creating problem. As you see in this direction, the peoples and countries trade relations becomes almost similar. Usually the export is higher here, but in more countries, in the emerging economies, in developing nations, This is, of course, vice versa. Import is more and export is less. Therefore, most of the countries exercising balance of payment problems, and of course, current account deficit and net export is always negative. Similarly, in the United States, we are observing the same problem. They have the export and imports realized bilaterally, and here, as you are observing, import amount is more than export, and is, of course, for the United States, this is should be a big problem or big issue because they are distributing the global markets, their financial abilities and financial intermediaries, and they have, of course, global impact to the world trade. Therefore, this is something differently realized as we are observing currently in the world nations. Interdependence, of course, coming and affecting the whole nation's living standards and, of course, the welfare. And, of course, this is mostly comes from the materials or raw materials or energy which is not available at home in our domestic markets. And due to this, we are trying to import some materials, some resources, and of course energy which we don't have, as you are observing in the Middle East area. Most of the countries exercising this energy from Russian countries, from Middle East countries, from Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, Syria. They have the energy and resources, and this is, of course, one of the important part of the problem in the Middle East, which is created because the energy and, of course, gas, which is in the southern part of the world, is creating problem because northern part is developed and they don't have the energy resources, and they are trying to eliminate these problems by capturing these resources towards to their destination. And financial inabilities, as I mentioned to you, the FDI investment is also inevitable resources that we have to use continuously because we don't have always our resources fully supported and, of course, supplied from our country's capital, because since the export is less than import, then we have to support our production operation process with foreign currencies and, of course, foreign capital. Inflationary pressure is also a problem, as you are observing. Most of the developing nations exercise higher inflation. On the one side, higher inflation is contributive to increase and enlarge, of course, the export. But since we are using heavily the input, so-called the energy and some other input resources from foreign countries, then we have to pay much for the imported energy and other resources for producing something in our countries. Therefore, inflationary pressure is not always supportive for our countries, and inflation is not always the only and only instrument for enlarging the economy, because in current economical activities we have the problem with the gas, with the energy. Since we are using foreign gas and energy from other countries, then we have to pay to produce. Therefore, while you are trying to reduce your currency's value via inflation, you are also reducing your ability to pay the bill to the foreigners for this gas and energy. And at the end of the day, you will enlarge probably your exportable goods, but on the other side, you are increasing your current account deficit towards the other nations because of this energy resource and other ingredients and, of course, input that they are using in the production operation process. Of course, fiscal policies are also very important. I have to mention also this. Fiscal policy is also affecting and changing the economical activities in our countries, because if you don't have the sufficient capital, then you have to use the other nations' resources, since we are exercising this inflationary pressure in our countries, then fiscal policy is also affecting and changing our country's performance towards the other nations, because fiscal policy must be very strictly controlled and applied for having sustainable economical activities. Otherwise, we are exercising continuously problem in the international relations. We have also mentioned comparative advantages while we are exercising this David Ricardo's theory, you remembered. Then, of course, David Ricardo's theory is also concentrated to the relative cost advantages of the countries where they are using the resources for becoming a trade partner. If you have the relative cost advantages for production operation process, then you will become the trade partner. But as I said to you, this is of course totally dependent on the resource management and of course your resources that you are having in your country. If you have abundant factors for producing goods and services in your country, then you are able to enlarge and increase your capacity in the trade. If you don't, then of course this will then of course creating other problems. Therefore, we have to enlarge and increase our trade relations regarding to the relative cost advantages which we are having in our country abundantly, and we are supporting and enlarging our trade relations in this direction, as it is mentioned in the Heckscher-Ohlin theory, where they are also based their theories to the abundance of factors in the production operation process. You have to factors in your country abundantly, then you will become the trade partner, as it is, of course, this is also supporting David Ricardo's relative lower cost advantages for becoming trade partner. Of course, common policies of international trade is also very important to mention, because, you know, trade is zero-sum game. It is supposed to be, or it is assumed to be, but trade can bring benefits to the both parties. Sometimes can cause some negative, sometimes can cause some positive effects. Therefore, trade cannot be a zero-sum game where we are exercising in the game theory. Zero-sum game. I don't. What is this? What was this? There was a noise.
It was Mohammed's microphone, but it's off now.
Okay. As I mentioned to you, import is bad, export is good, is supposed to be a good scenario, but this is not true, because you have to export and you have to import, because if you only export or if you concentrate to the export-based trade regime, this will not supporting your country, because you have to bilaterally communicate with your countries for enlarging and increasing your export capacity by importing some also, because if you don't buy nothing, or if you buy nothing from other countries, they have nothing to buy from you either, isn't it? Therefore, you have to learn to manage these trade relations with exports and imports, and in this direction, you have to concentrate to the terms of trade that we mentioned in the class that we are going to exercise in the following lectures. As much as you are increasing and enlarging your benefits via export, and of course increasing and enlarging your trade, and of course your benefits via import, this will be the best possible solution and scenario for the trade relations. Because if you are able to buy something which is very expensive in your country from other nations, then this is a good. But if you don't, then of course this is not good. Therefore, you have to buy something which is expensive and which is restricted or limited in your country, and you have to export something which you have produced abundantly and you are not able to sell in your country in domestic market. Therefore, this will then help and support your country in this direction for enlarging and increasing the, of course, development and of course welfare, because economics is not only the production operation process and profit, it is also the welfare for the consumers, for the nations as a whole. and we have to think the people's consumers' welfare. Tariffs and quotas save jobs supposed to be for the WTO or for the former General Agreement of Tariff and Trade. This GATT introduction is, of course, is against this. Some countries supporting and assuming if we put the tax in front of the import, this will then enlarge and increase our economies and our job places. This is not true because you have to increase and enlarge your economy via export, and of course you have to enlarge and increase your economies via import, because if you import, then people able to buy cheap and you don't have to pay too much to buy your own produced expensive goods and services. Therefore, tariffs and quotas sometimes contributing to the welfare, and tariffs and quotas sometimes restricting the import, but sometimes is of course cutting the import, make it harder to export, so other jobs are lost in the country. And competitiveness and trade is also very important when we are looking from this side. Main objective of any nation is to generate high and rising standard of living is important. No nation can efficiently make everything itself, and international trade allows countries to focus on producing what they make efficiently. And inefficient sectors will be sequestered out, and sectors open to competition become more efficient and productive, because as much as you are enlarging and increasing your production operation process and become more competitive from the other nations, you will then of course able to reduce the cost of production by enlarging the production operation process via scale economics or economics of scale. And of course this will then of course contributing to you the import high-tech technologies and of course production operation process techniques, and this will of course supporting you to become more competitive in the global market via these technical advantages, which is going to give you more profit at the end of the day. Of course, productivity increases faster when countries produce according to comparative advantages, as we mentioned, and global competition and cheap imports keep price low and inflation at bay. Global competition, as I mentioned to you, invite your country cheap production. You are able to buy cheap goods in your country, and this is good for your welfare, for your consumers. You don't have to pay them too much money to buy. They will buy cheap products from imported countries, and you will export some goods which is of course similarly cheaper and probably for you is expensive in your country, because vice versa, this inflationary problem sometimes contributing this exportable goods and services. Therefore, each country become advantages results of this international trade relations. Open economy encourages technological development and innovation with ideas from abroad. Therefore, innovation and of course development is the necessary antidote in the economy. We have to learn to manage and enlarge our economies. As you are remembering the Eastern and Western Germany, when they are coming together, in the eastern part of the Germany, the people where they have the closed Soviet regime, they are of course using the similar goods, similar cars, similar technical and of course services that they are having in their hands. They are going to the similar places, they are using similar similarities in their life, which is the intermediate standards. This is of course the collapse, this is the reason this forced to collapse the Soviet agenda, because when you have this proletariat system and proletariat application, you are not able to increase the competitive market structure, and you are not able to increase the welfare of the people. And when they join to this Western Germany, they become enlarged and increase their welfare and their capitalist aspect, and of course profit, and similarly the welfare. in other nations, the Central Eastern European countries, either Poland, Ukraine, and some others are also joined to this uh, procedure, and they become more competitive and become more prosperity and more developed nation status and standards after this EU membership. Because if you are not opening your economy to the competition, you are not able to develop. As we are observing, if you are at home, you closed, and you don't know what is happening outside, you are not able to enlarge and increase your horizontal aspect. Therefore, you have to enlarge and increase your capacity regarding to this direction, because competition and productivity sometimes require some, of course, problems, some negativities, and some lower standards to push you and to boost you to the upper standards by accelerating and increasing your capacity. Um, this is also important to note. Free movements of capital, labor, and individuals also accelerating these interactions and, of course, similarities, which is enlarging and increasing the capacity of the people. Because if you see the development and the others aspect, you will then enlarge and increase your capacity either. Therefore, enlarging economies is also necessary to increase the capitalist aspect, increase the neoliberal aspect. We are letting people to develop and increase their productivity by using high-tech production operation process, by using lower, let's say, uh, credit interest rate for reaching these credits via FDI and FPI investment, foreign direct investment, foreign portfolio investment. And these are the things which are supporting and increasing the economy in this direction. And then we go to the disadvantages. Of course, sometimes is it true because of this globalization we are exercising, as we are currently observing, pandemic coronavirus affected the whole nations, reduced the whole nations' economical progress, reduced the, of course, employment capacity, affecting the whole nations' global welfare. Therefore, sometimes global aspect reducing the wages, because when the people coming from other nations, they are ready to work with cheaper and lower wages and lower salaries. Therefore, these things may damage the unions where they are having in their country. And these things probably most important part of the globalization, because on the one side, you are trying to enlarge and increase the franchising companies and FDI investment. And on the other side, you are, of course, affecting your welfare by using this migration and, of course, migrated labor towards to your country. And of course, this is, and of course, the most important part, because the welfare is reducing and the gap between rich and poor is enlarging. Since the capital is increased, of course, rich people is enlarging and increasing their capital. And this is then, of course, causing some resource transfer from consumers, from let's say demand to the supply, because of this globalization, because every time you have to pay less and less wages and less salaries to these people for producing more and more. As we are observing in China, the China becomes the global and, of course, the most important supplier of the world. And results of this, people get paid $50, $100 per month, and the capitalist producers capturing more and more at the end of the day. And this is, of course, expanding to the whole nations, to the whole global markets. Even in the Europe, some producers starting to cut the wages, reducing the wages, and giving them some other options for increasing their capability and competition and challenging power in the global market. Because China, as you know, is the most important supplier in the world. And if you want to compete with Chinese producers, which is, of course, most of these producers coming from the foreign Western countries, they have to learn to manage this also with this wage problem, as I mentioned to you. Okay, I finished the first part of this presentation. If you want, I can go to the second part, or I can let it here, and then you go home. And next lecture, I will give you the other one, because the other part is going to be around 1 hour. Is a little bit more longer, and of course, with it more uh, time we need. Therefore, we can stop here. This was the first online lecture. And if you have any discussion and any request from me, you can write me email, or you can communicate me via WhatsApp, because we have WhatsApp group, as you know. We can do this, and I will give you one short homework regarding to this presentation, regarding to these problems of the world, and you will do it. Is that right? Is okay for you? You can open your microphone and talk to me. Do you have any question? Yes, Prof. Okay, I see. Okay, then. Do you have any? Shall I have to go further or stop here? Do you want me to start the other presentation? No question. You can talk to me, or we can stop here, then go to the next part. I will give you one assignment via Uzebim, via this portal, that you access to this program. Is okay? Is it okay?
I said, okay, sir.
Hi, Hala, you late
It's
to
okay,
me.
sir. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah. Yeah, fine. We're
Okay,
okay.
then. I can give you an assignment to do, okay, to do work regarding to this coronavirus, with of course how to affect and change the economy. I will give you one literature review, and then you will
Okay.
discuss it and write me some pages, okay, to see how you are going to see the solution for this pandemic. Okay, is that okay? You follow
Okay,
this.
sir. Okay, sir.
I
Okay.
will put one. I will put today or tomorrow one assignment to this portal, and then you do it. And next lecture we will go to the next presentation. Is that okay?
Okay, sir. Yes, okay, sir. It's
Okay
okay.
then.
Yeah.
Okay then. If you don't have any question, then I will stop here.
Okay, sir. Yeah. Thanks so much, sir.
I appreciate for you coming. Next Friday, then we have another one. Okay.
Yes, sir. Okay, sir. Yeah.
Okay then. Then see you next Friday. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye bye. Bye bye.